unlike whenever you went, there was like 6 kids there whenever you went, and there were like 30 kids there whenever I was
Correct.
there.
At least from Oklahoma, anyway.
Yeah. Now a lot of them went to other places. Like some of them went to Fort Sill, some of them went to Fort Moore now, but it's Fort Benning. So, but a lot of them, the majority of them went with me to Fort Jackson, and I was like, well, I'll get on this plane and I'll never see most of these kids again. But that was not the case. And most of those kids from Oklahoma in the National Guard, I mean, they were in my company and platoon. I was like, I figured once we got there, I'd be like, well, this will be the last time we see each other. Bye, everybody. And that did not ever happen. They kind of stuck around with me the entire time, which was kind of crazy.
Because that did not happen to me.
Yeah, so we get on the plane, and unlike you, so we get on the plane, we go to Atlanta, and then we get on a bus from Atlanta to South Carolina. Like, we bussed like 4 hours there, and it was a long drive. I mean, but that's why I told everybody who was on the bus, I was like, guys, when we get there, they're not going to let us sleep for the first day, so just sleep as much as you can on this bus. A lot of kids, didn't believe me, but I was like, you trust me, sleep while you can, because this will be the last chance we'll get in the next 24 hours at least.
Yep.
Or almost 48 hours at that point. But
yep. Nap on the plane, nap on the bus, because that first day there, you're going to be up at least till about 2 to 3 a.m. in the morning.
Oh,
guaranteed.
We were up all night. We didn't get to sleep. Like we sat us in that little church room, and we sat up there all night, and then we didn't get to go to sleep until the following day. It was a long one.
I believe that.
Yeah, so we get to reception, and we go. The first thing you do is like eat your camel packs, and they start issuing you what little gear like a laundry bag, and they issue you what little gear they can give you, and then you start getting your other stuff you can get fitted for your clothes. But then you do a medical screening again. Like, you go to MEPS before you go, and you get your clearance to go to, right, and to Army basic training, and then you get to reception, and you do the exact same medical screenings. And they tested my hearing, they tested my sight, they shoot you up with shots. It was ridiculous.
Just protocol, making sure nobody beat the system at their MEPS facilities.
Yeah. And it was crazy. But that sucked. Being at MEPS sucked. Like, you get up, and like finally we were so happy to get to the bays where we could actually sleep after like 48 hours of being awake all day. And they're yelling at kids who are falling asleep when we're just sitting there in this hotel room, or not this church sermon room, essentially. Mm-hmm. And, yelling at kids for passing out. It's like, we've been up for 48 hours. What do you want from us? And so finally we get to go to those rooms, and man, those rooms, they had no air conditioning. They had air conditioning, but they didn't use them. There was like 89, almost 90 degrees in there. But it was wintertime too. But man, it sucked. Like, you get in there just sweating, trying to go to sleep, and then you wake up at 4 in the morning and stand out in formation. That's what you did. You just stood everywhere, and like, my feet were killing me. Like, the worst part was my feet were just were dead before we even made it to basic training, or our drill sergeants. Like, my feet hurt so bad I just want to sit down, because you'd just be standing in line going to the chow hall, and that's all you did. Just basically you'd march to the chow hall and you march back every day, but then you would be taken around to do your medical screenings or things like that to finish up reception. We were there for a whole week, unlike Chad, who was there for 3 days like a piece of crap. Lucky. They were trying to get us out of there a day in advance, but then like they just came out and they're like, yeah, it's not going to happen. We were just like, But I did learn whenever we were and this was preliminary knowledge, not for sure, but one of the people there was like, yeah, this is this group here, and they were kind of pointing out, these guys will be going to Bravo 439. And I was like, that's the exact same company that my brother was just at. Like, that's a heck of a coincidence. But it was just like the video lady who said that. Like, she's not affiliated with the Army. She's just like
she's a contractor.
Sales contractor that sells, Army videos and stuff. But she was like, yeah, your group's going to 439. And I was like, are you 100%? And like, and a lot of people, there's just like, don't listen to her. She's not like actually like official or anything, but she was correct. We ended up going. That's where like we were loading up and getting on the bus, and I was put in first platoon, and we were loading up. And so they drive up in LMTV, which is a big truck with a canopy over it, and you throw all your bags into it. So we're throwing all of our bags in. And the drill sergeants who drive it are obviously from our company, like they're from where our drill sergeants are, because obviously this LMTV belongs to our company. So I get out, and there's one drill sergeant standing there, and he's just eyeballing me. He's just straight staring at me, and I was just like, it's like, I don't feel like he's staring at me. I think he's just looking at his new batch of recruits that he's got, you know. But I mean, and this guy could just be a driver for all I know, and not like affiliated with the company. But I just get the feeling he's just staring me down personally. You know, I don't know this guy from Adam, but I'm sitting there like, and like in the back of my head, I go, this might be one of Chad's drill sergeants, and he probably recognizes me or thinks I'm Chad, or maybe it's like one of the ones that was his favorites, and like they know exactly who I am. And I was correct. Like he knew exactly who I was. He didn't say anything, but because he was so bewildered when he was looking at me, but he was looking directly at me, and not because I asked him about it later. But so we load up and we get on these buses. You know, they go, put your head down, don't look up, and you know, you get there and you arrive at
Your company.
At the company, and we get out there at Bravo, and we're over there by where the dumpster is where the bus stops. You know, where all the buses stop. You know, when they're picking you up from church and whatnot, but. They stop over there, and the drill sergeant hops in and goes, "Get off this bus!" And I'm the last person out there. Like, never be the last, but I was like, I was the last person in the bus. Like, I mean, there's no other way for me to, like, I was the last man, you know. So I was like, I was worried about that, but it wasn't really an issue. So we go and we do all that, you know, like they running you around doing the phases and stuff. And as we're running around doing this stuff, the first drill sergeant that says anything to me. Is when we're doing the phase run stuff. So like we go up and I'm carrying this dang, what do you call it? What do you call the medical? The stretcher.
Stretcher, yeah.
Know? I'm carrying the stretcher, and they're like, yeah, everybody carries something. So somebody's carrying a gallon, a 4-gallon jug of gas, you know, and
ammo
stuff.
crate.
I'm carrying the litter, the Aiden litter kit, and I'm running up there, and then I'm running back down. With it, I'm still carrying this stuff, and I'm just like, is anybody else going to trade me? Because, like, we were running as a group, and then the group just left and ran to the Omaha fire lane or whatever, and I was like, somebody come back here and trade me out. I'm sick of carrying this thing. Like, I got 2 girls who are, like, can barely keep up with me, and I'm carrying 2 instead of, like, it's supposed to be 1 person on each side, and I'm carrying the 2. I was like, somebody come relieve me, for God's sakes. We're carrying the weight of a human body, and I got 2 girls who can't keep up with me, you know? And I was getting tired too. My arms were sagging and hanging, and I was just like, "Hey, I need some strong guys to come back over here and help me, like from first platoon, you know." But nobody can hear me. Nobody's listening. You know who is listening is Drill Sergeant Johnson. He goes, "Hey, you know there are strong females too, Watson." And we're not wearing anything that like indicates who we are. I don't have a name patch on. Nope. I'm wearing PT gear, so I don't have my name on my camelback or anything. But you know, Drill Sergeant Johnson's like, "I know exactly." Like he was like, "I know exactly who you are." I was like, "Oh, this is not good." So he's like, there are strong females too, Watson. And I was like, oh, and I was like, yes, Drill Sergeant. So we get over there, and then after we've done all the what your training will look like in the span of a couple of minutes, we're getting all of our bags put together and like, hey, find your bag, and then your favorite Drill Sergeant Ramirez, comes up to. So I'm looking for my bag. I cannot find my duffel bags to save my life. Like I've labeled the crap out of it too. I don't know where it is. Like I'm running around from platoon to platoon looking for like where they dump my bag, and like just I'm just lost. And then this one drill sergeant just walks up to me and goes, "Hey," he's like, and I was like, "Yes, Drill Sergeant." And he's like, "Yeah, twin brother, he used to go here," and I was like, "Yes, Drill Sergeant." And he's like, "I effing thought so." He's like, "Get back to work." And I was just like, "Yes, Drill Sergeant." And I was just like, and that's the way it was. Like every single, there were a couple of new drill sergeants there who had no clue, but that's how it was with most of them. Like, so I'd be sitting there, and as we're running around doing all this stuff, unloading bags, they would just drill sergeants would just walk up to me, and then at one point, somebody yells my name, and I am called to the front of the CTA. So like everybody's in the formation in the platoon, and as I'm running, like the first sergeant goes, "There, trainee Watson." Now I'm not the only Watson. There's another guy in 4th platoon called Watson too, but they go, "Watson, who had a twin brother here last cycle," and I was like, "Oh, that is not good." So this is the first sergeant. Like you do not interact with the first sergeant. Like that's like unheard of. But first sergeant comes running up, and he's like. And he goes, "First sergeant wants to talk to you." And I was like, "Oh, it's not good." So I run up, and I'm like, "Yes, drill sergeant." And of course, I get yelled at. "He's not a drill sergeant. He's the first sergeant of the company." And I'm like, "Oh, I don't know. Cool." So he's got there, and then all of a sudden, here comes Drill Sergeant Musgrove, and he goes, "Your brother was here last cycle." And I was like, "Yes, Drill Sergeant." He goes, "Your brother was an excellent trainee." And I was just like, "Yes, Drill Sergeant," And
Did you hear that? He was an excellent
he said he was an
trainee.
excellent trainee. That is his words verbatim. I remember it like it was yesterday. But of course, I go up there and the first sergeant's like, "Hey, your brother was here last cycle, wasn't he?" And I was like, "Yes, first sergeant." As I'm trying to fix it, and he's like, "Well, you're gonna do," and it's so loud in the CTA because there's so many drill sergeants yelling. There's so much going on. I could not hear what he said. You're gonna do this many push-ups, and I didn't know what number he said. And I was like, I thought I heard him say like, he might have just said 39. But I was like, "Did you say do 139 push-ups, first sergeant?" He was like, "Nope, that's how many you're gonna do now." And I was just like, "Oh man." So I get down there and I rep out like 70 push-ups without a break, and then I'm like, I gotta, I get in the front lane, the rest kind of drop to my knees and take a break for a minute, and then I pound out like 20 more, and then I pound out like 20 until I get to that 139 number, and that was not fun, but I did it, there were other people running around doing stuff, and I was catching my breath because it was a lot to do in a short amount of time. It was hot out that day, like, even though it was winter, like it was wonderful weather the whole time we were there, like it was gorgeous.
It was the same for me when I was there from September to December. We only had like we probably had like a week's worth of like super cold days. You'd be like, God, I hate it. But the rest of it was actually really good.
It was. Fort Jackson just has when I was there, it was just a wonderful weather. And I mean, it was hot the day we arrived to Bravo, hot. Like, so I was out of breath, because we'd already been running around doing stuff, and I just did 139 push-ups. And he's like, I was like, I'm done. And I was like, so I get ready to take off to run, catch up with my platoon. He goes, no, you're going to stand there. You're going to take a break, catch your breath, and then I'm going to let you go when I feel better about it. That's how like, they actually care, like he's not going to be like, this guy's totally dead right now. I'm not going to let him go and kill himself trying to catch up with the platoon. So, I knew that I was in good hands at that point. It was, I was like, so, and I was like, I must be living in the good graces of Chad's reputation here as well. So, again, like all the drill sergeants are actively aware now that I am there, that they have somebody that all of them know or have problems. So, and then they would come up to me, did your brother tell you this? Did your brother tell you that? And I'd be like, he sure did, drill sergeant. And I'm like, so that was interesting. It was like I said, again, a unique once in a lifetime experience that I realize, well, I was very fortunate to have, give or take. It's like also being well known is not a good thing, but like I said, in my case, it wasn't a bad thing because, I lived in your good grace, the wake of your good graces there. So,
and you remember that.
I do remember that. It was a very cool experience for sure. I really enjoyed my time at Bravo, and I had a rapport with the drill sergeants that no other trainee would have. So when you're a twin, like sometimes, like I'll give you an example. Like I met one of my best friends because of Chad, and Chad was in class with a guy, and it was one of my best friends' name is Drake, and Chad had a class with him, and so when you're a twin, you don't always tell people you're a twin, because it's just like I don't need to tell everybody I'm a twin.
It's not the first thing that rolls up in
especially if they're, and it was a new kid. He was a new kid in school as well. So it's like not the first thing you talk about. It's like I've got a life, got other things going on. I don't just go up to everybody, I'm a twin, everybody, look at me. You just like you're a weirdo. Like get out of my face. Like I don't want to talk to you. So I'm at school in high school, and like this random kid comes up to me in the hallway and goes, "Hey man, what are we doing in Duffy's class today?" And I was like, I don't know, man. I don't have Duffy as a teacher. I can't help you. And then like he's like, "No, man, you quit playing around. What are we doing in Duffy's class today?" And I was like, "You must be talking about my twin brother. Like I don't have Duffy as a teacher. Like you're talking about Chad. Like I'm not in Duffy's class. I've never met you, but go find Chad. It'll probably be closer to your class, And he just looked at me. He just gave me like this look, like, why is this guy being a jerk right now? And I go away, and then eventually he walks up to you, and he goes, I don't even know. He just goes, "Hey, do you have a twin brother?" And you're like, "Yeah, I do. Did you meet him or something?" And you're like, "Yeah, I was asking what we were doing in class today." And like, again, that's how I've met a lot of my really good friends, just because, just serendipitously. It's like, I didn't realize you were a twin, and it's like, oh yeah. So I'll have to have conversations with people who I don't know who they are, but they're just assuming I'm Chad. So it's always fun to do though, because you just sit there. It's like I have an idea of what's going on, but that's the way it was being at Bravo. Mm-hmm. So all these drill sergeants, like, they don't make that distinction because when you have a twin brother or identical twin brother, like sometimes they just don't make that separation. So I'll walk in there and they'll be like, oh yeah, you're not Chad. Yeah, they'll be telling a story, but it's like, I know what you're talking about though, because he told me this story, and they're all like, okay, so you're already on the same page. I'm like, yes, drill sergeant. Like I know exactly what you're talking about.
Well, that's also part of the situation too, because sometimes the drill sergeants aren't at the location where something has happened, so they're getting it secondhand from another drill sergeant.
Yeah.
So you basically are like in the same situation
Yeah.
that most of them are in.
Yeah, absolutely. So me and all the drill sergeants have the same collective knowledge of what happened the last cycle. So and that was the thing, like in my platoon, I'd tell everybody, guys, this is what's going to happen next, because I had your schedule and what happened day by day basically memorized.
Mm-hmm.
And again, you'd be shocked how people just don't believe you. It's like, and then they'd come up to me later and be like, well, that happened exactly the way you said it was going to happen. I'd be like, yep, I told you. I don't know why you guys keep fighting me on this. Like, just believe me when I say I know what's coming next.
Yeah, you have the playbook.
I have the playbook.
Said my little diary or notes letters that I sent home to you are basically the play-by-play of what's going to happen, besides like a small tweak here or there.
But yeah, I mean, when I showed up to Bravo, it was like, I don't know if you've ever played sports, but it's like if you're the younger brother of somebody who played and just graduated. Like you come up as a freshman and they just graduated as a senior. It's like, oh, look, it's so-and-so's little brother. That's kind of how it felt. It was like a junior varsity kid going up to the varsity team whose brother was already there. So that's what was interesting about it. Now, again, I had very interesting conversations and stuff with the drill sergeants because I had that prior knowledge. So I knew Drill Sergeant V pretty well. And one time we had to get ice, because you have to make ice for heat catting. You have to make ice buckets for heat cats and stuff. Well, heat cat is a heat casualty. So I'm over there and we're getting ice out of the ice chest over there by the DFAC. And I'm like the last person in line, and there's like no reason to grab any more ice. So like I'm standing there with her, and she's trying to like lock this gate, and she can't do it. And I was just like, and she's like, Watson, I know I'm not stupid, but I cannot get this thing to work, so I'm going to make you do it. And so I get up there and I go, and I'm trying to lock, and I get it to lock, and I close it, and I get it, and I hand the key back to her, and I just look at her, because she's just like silent, because I made it look easy, I was like, it stays between us, Drill Sergeant. And she was like, she laughed, and was like, I bet it will, trainee. And I was like, yep. And then I'll be able to like probe her about what happened last night. Like, hey, what was it like doing this? How did trainee? She was like, oh, your brother tell you about trainee let's run away. Yeah. And like I was like, yeah, I did. I was like, how did he get in without being medical trained? She was like, she'd be like, he must have had a heck of a recruiter. So I would get to have these conversations with them, like really just present of prior knowledge, and they enjoyed it too, because they don't often get to have conversations with people about what happened in a prior cycle.
Yep.
It just doesn't work that way. You're just talking to kids you are just trying to train for.
That's what I told you. Is like I said, you had a very interesting relationship with drill sergeants that no other trainee in like a lifetime has probably ever had.
Yes.
Unless, of course, there's a situation where it's like, oh, I personally know your brother. I served with your brother or, father or some situation like that.
And that's even rarer than what, I don't know. I guess it's probably about the same amount of rare. But, yeah, it was just interesting because I would have conversations with Drill Sergeant Musgrove. Like, hey, well, remember that trainee that you throw down like 6 times at the Omaha? And he'd be like, yeah, your brother told you about that? I was like, yeah. And I was like, and he'd just be like, yeah, here's the thing about that trainee. and I would just get to listen to their perspective on the event instead of hearing it from your perspective.
Because everyone's perspective of a situation is completely different.
It's amazing how radically different their perspective was on certain scenarios. And like I said, again, I could talk about I was talking to Drill Sergeant Johnson and Drill Sergeant Ramirez
about that same.
I'd be like, they gave and I got to watch them go head to head about why one of them was like, oh, I think he's a good person. The other one was like, no, I don't like him. I'll never want to serve with him anywhere. And like I was like, this is awesome. I get to see this. And like the other candidates or trainees are like, I have no idea what's going on. But I'm sitting there laughing.
As for always, I will defend Drill Sergeant Ram because. He was actually in his platoon. Like I said, your drill sergeant just came in to like give him like little pep talks. Yeah, he was looking
at it from like the outside perspective,
Yeah, so. He was giving him like he'd come in and give that kid some pep talk to try to cheer him up and stuff. Whereas Drill Sergeant Ramirez was like, do you understand what I'm telling you? And he'd be like, yes, I understand. And all of a sudden he's like, you clearly do not, because you just did exactly what I told you not to do.
Yes, exactly. So that was like basically verbatim the conversation that they had. So it was interesting to see these clash of personalities come over a shared thing that I could have with them. Be like, oh yeah, tell me about your perspective, and and then Ramirez would come in with his hardcore perspective, like I can't stand the kid, it's like, and then John's like, oh, you guys just don't get it, and he's like, no, and Ramirez like, no, you don't get it.
So yeah, I would always trust a person who has more time with said individual than someone who's just like outside.
Absolutely.